question. And let's share what's a recent experience you had not belonging and what did you do about it? So who wants to go first or I go and point at someone? Okay, Dr. Carey, you go.
I can go first. Um, it was interesting actually at the Funference, and this is a piece I think of why Shoshana and I ended up having this conversation. I found myself sliding into some old habits of feeling like I'm the underdog. My business is really small. Am I dressed correctly? Like, what if I show up and I don't know anybody, right? And all of those are good signals that mean hey, you're feeling uncomfortable, right? Like, and you're worried about how people are going to receive you. And so noticing that was the first step, right? Was when I was on my fourth outfit trying to figure out if it was the right one. I was like, oh, I know what you're doing. You're doing that old thing where you felt like the poor kid at the rich school because I grew up and I was the poor kid at the rich school. And and like my clothes are good enough and really even if your clothes aren't good enough you're just fine. Why don't you show up like yourself? What do you feel most comfortable in today? And then let's walk in with some curiosity and a big smile. So for me it was noticing like, oh, I feel uncomfortable and this is really old yucky stuff coming up, and then to walk in and remind myself like I'm fine. Nobody, like no one is shooting at me today. I'm going to go and actually talk to other friendly women. And if somebody isn't friendly, okay, that doesn't have to become mine. Maybe she's having a hard time today. So walking in with a sense of being friendly, being curious, being open, instead of trying to force it to, some rigid ideal.
Hmm. Gotcha. And I know that other people attended the conference, the fun friends in the panel. So who else wants to share what they've heard from that experience? Shoshana.
So my flavor is not belonging, like feeling like I fit in. Mine is more about being included. And so,
Mm.
so a recent experience that I had where I did not feel included is on social media. I saw a family member had a big like group kind of dinner and did not invite me. And the actual experience of it was it hurt my feelings. I was like, why am I not included? What, like, why did all these people get together and not even call me? That's so rude. And so how how I dealt with how I dealt with that feeling of not being included was two ways. One is I always remember that people can't read my mind. So if I want to hang out with people, then I need to address and invite myself. That's one. And then the second was I don't like to hold those feelings of hurt feelings for very long, especially with people, because then they kind of build up over time. And then the next time I see them, I'm filled with resentment and treat them differently. And that's like the opposite of what I want in my relationships is to feel disconnected. So I reached out to the person that had had this like dinner. And when I reached out to her, I was like, I didn't say like, hey, you had an event and didn't invite me. Because like it wasn't like, do I invite her every time I have an event? No. So I didn't approach it that way. I just said, this is really embarrassing, but I kind of felt hurt that you didn't invite me to dinner and I would have liked to come. And she thought it was totally funny because I have events all the time and don't invite her. And so then we got to have a dialogue about how she sometimes feels like I don't include her either. And I was like, oh, well, I assumed you're busy. And she assumed the same about me. And so I would say that, and this was, probably about a month and a half ago, what I would say about that, especially in this conversation, is that we can make a lot of assumptions about people's intentions, like a lot of assumptions. We can assume what they were thinking, how they're feeling, how they feel about us, what they think about us. And I was absolutely incorrect. So
Mhm.
I'm intuitive, literally an intuition expert, and that has nothing to do with assuming because that is all my junk. And that is what was present in that engagement. And it got complete. And, I have to watch for that because the not feeling included comes up. That's like old stuff, right? Old stuff from middle
Mhm.
school.
Mm. And what I get out of what you just said, Shoshana, is that, communicating it with the right person is actually key to find the solution. And then Dr. Carey yourself, like it's as if you had that extra awareness of identifying that, okay, so something's wrong here. Like, why am I feeling this way? And then being open and curious. So now, Jen, I want to hear from you because you seem to be eager to say something about
Well,
this.
I don't know if it's my 20-year friendship with Shoshana or the fact that we're both Virgos, but so often when she opens, that's why I put shows my spirit animal, because it being included has always been a thing for me. And one of what I would call my case issues is nobody likes me, nobody wants to be around me. And that's a brain pattern. And I consistently have to interrupt it. And yes, from middle school, et cetera. And so when, as panelists, we were asked to name one event, I'm like, I do that all the time. Like, what do you mean one event? Every day, all day. I look at stuff on social media. I see pictures that people are posting from 5 years ago. I'm like, where was I? Why wasn't I in there? Why wasn't I included? What's happening? It's insane. So most recently, though, I had a friend who had a 60th birthday party, and we have had a little bit of a rocky time, and she invited me. And I was very trepidatious about going. I'm like, why is she inviting me? I don't understand. We've had all these arguments. She doesn't really like me. She's not my friend. And I could begin to recognize that was my viewpoint and had nothing to do with her. It was a viewpoint that it was like a decision I had taken that she doesn't like me. And it also goes back to that ages old pattern of nobody likes me, everybody hates me. I guess I'll go eat worms. So I said, no, I'm going to drive the hour and a half to go to her birthday party. I am just going to create for myself the viewpoint. This is going to be amazing. I'm going to get to connect with people. So I took agency over my own experience, and it was wonderful. And the next day I thanked her, and she said, I just want you to know how important your friendship is to me. And those moments make me chuckle because I'm saying to myself, you're such a jerk. First of all, that you're so arrogant, you think you should be included in everything, because no, nobody gets invited to everything. So like, put yourself in the back shelf and quit thinking you're all that and a bag of chips. And secondly, wow, if I had decided not to go, what a hurtful blow to her. And that decision I might have taken not to go was all from the viewpoint that I had between my ears and was projecting onto her, and nothing at all about our friendship.
Mm. That's such a great story, Jen. And I'm sure that like all of us were like nodding, recognizing that it's already happened to us. Jenny,
Oh my
anything
gosh.
on this?
So much goodness here. And I love, Shoshana, the distinction that you made around fitting in versus being included. And my little nuance to that is they don't get me. And so when I start thinking they don't get me, I exile myself from the group. So then I feel like I don't belong because they don't get me. And I just had this with two women who I love, and we meet every month as sex therapists and have for 5-6 years now, and consult. And I had they don't get me, I'm different and they don't get me feeling, and I can feel it in my body. And that way that I want to go to this divisive, it's the whole like Republican, Democrat, good and bad, black and white, like get into this. And I could feel it in myself. And I do it to myself. Like that's my inner punisher, like I'm not that middle school, I'm not good enough, they don't like me. And I could feel myself wanting to like make my point. You should listen to this podcast, like all the stuff in me wanting to come forward. And it's like, oh, honey, you're safe. We're three women who are all different, but I can feel, and this has been so much of my learning, my goodness, like for decades now, to regulate the tissues literally in my body that I have conditioned to urgency and emergency, and like in this state of striving and proving, and so, and learning how to calm myself and like come into my back body. That's what I do. I breathe and I come into my back body, and I remind myself that I get to love and adore these people in our difference. And that's what makes us so interesting to be with. And it's this doorway to intimacy. I brought it forward to my girlfriends, who of course were like, oh yeah, I get that, and then there's like we weave together a beautiful net of connection through our different perspectives and through the perspectives that they have that are maybe different from mine. So I feel like under the belonging category, there are all these little subsets, you know, that we could identify, which is kind of fun to do that shadow work, right?
Yeah.